Hello, my faithful federal fanatics. This is Dave Lowe with the Federal Playbook. I am prepping for Jason Moy today at 1 p.m. We're going to be talking about protests. I'll get back to that in a minute because that is something that is within our control. First things first, I was wrong yesterday. Shocking I could be wrong. I know, first time forever, right? So the shutdown is still real. And if it does happen, it's not going to be good. That is all true. But guess what? There will still be potential. What? You telling me? Oh my gosh, the sky is falling. Listen, if we're watching the problem, then we can't see how we can leverage the chaos. What am I talking about? Guess what? There's always a lot of chaos in the federal government. I wouldn't be here if there wasn't chaos in the federal government or if the federal government did everything right. If they did everything right, there would be no need for me or anybody else to help you win in the federal space. That's a fact. So first things first, let's talk about some other facts. In 1980, the total federal budget was $579 billion. That's, if we look back at all the shutdowns in history, 2013, it was $2.9 trillion is how much was spent in 2013. You're like, well, the government shut down in 2013. Well, guess what? 2014, they spent $3.5 trillion. Now, let's get a little bit more recent because you might be saying, well, things are different now. They're not different at all. The fact of the matter is, if we're watching this big problem that we cannot control, we have no influence on this. All the knuckleheads inside Washington, D.C. are going to do what they're going to do. But at the end of the day, I'm going to prove to you once they fix it, and they will fix it, they will be spending money. Let's talk about the one that happened in 2018. It was the longest one. 2018, $6.3 trillion. 2019, $6.6 trillion. 2020, $9.1 trillion. And then things kind of got kirked out from COVID, right? But let's just say this. We're still at $9 trillion in 2022 for spending for contractors like you and me. There's $1.7 trillion. And that's all going to be spent by the end of the fiscal year, which is this Saturday. So we can be looking at all these problems. We can allow problems to control our lives, or we can take control of what we can have influence over. Think about it this way, and I'm just going to lay some seeds about what I'm going to be talking about in the next couple of weeks. Because right now it's all about monitoring and making sure that you're not missing anything for the end of the fiscal year. Got it. But I wanted to make sure that you know anytime that there's a challenge in the federal government. Last time when this happened, I was still doing representation in D.C. That's what I was doing. The doors were still open. I was knocking on them. I was going in. I can't tell you how many people I got to be able to meet and connect with just because of the shutdown. Think about it. They started their job in the federal government because of stability. A lot of times they take a pay cut for the stability of a federal job. Not so stable. So what happens is you can have a communication with federal buyers, with federal program managers. Tell me how that affected you. And I got to be able to build relationships because of the freaking shutdown. There's so much that we can leverage if we just don't let the chaos drive our lives. Look for ways for you to be able to impact the whole entire process within your domain. You don't have any domain in D.C. I don't have any domain in D.C. when it comes to trying to solve this federal budget problem and the challenges between red and blue and left and right. They're not going to change. And yes, I screwed up yesterday. I watched the news the night before. I'm like, the House passed this thing. They're not going to let this thing go. Oh boy, I was wrong. So I'm still up at the plate. I whiffed on one. I can't change anything that anybody else is doing, but I can change what I do. And you can't change what everybody else is doing either. You can complain about it, and we can all commiserate about it. And Monday morning on the Monday roundtables, that's what we're going to be doing. But first, we're going to be reviewing what we won. Let's say that the worst happens, and it goes more than 35 days than it did the last time. That was the longest, by the way. Even in that, all the federal employees were made whole. Now, it was a lot more impactful for folks like you and me because we didn't get made whole. We'll talk about that more. If it does happen, We're going to be working through ways that we can leverage the shutdown and gain traction. The other thing I'll say about the shutdown is think about this. How many businesses said, I don't want to do this anymore? Or maybe it shut them down because they weren't financially viable enough to be able to survive. That means that there's a vacuum for federal contracts right then. If a company goes out of business because of the shutdown, there's a vacuum to fill that void. And it's a problem that the government has because they still need to get the work done. Think about it. 2008, there was huge shakeup in the construction market. Construction market, boom, went down. All the speculation, everything. There were companies that were overextended. Back down in Jacksonville, I was meeting with Preston Haskell from the Haskell Corporation, and we were talking about it in 2009. He's like, it was crazy. Octo, huge organization, 100-year-old company, tanked. What did that do? Left a huge, huge, huge gap in the marketplace that then Haskell could fill because they were financially viable and made good decisions. Listen, no matter what happens, chaos creates opportunity. But if you're watching the problem, you can't see it. You can't see the solution to the chaos. So stick with me on this. I'm telling you, I was wrong yesterday, positively wrong, that they had solved the problem. Okay. They're going to solve the problem. And history tells us every time they solve the problem, they spend money. Every single time. And every single time, somebody exits that so that somebody else can come in. Somebody that's new. Or somebody that's already trusted. Even better. To be able to fill that void. And that's how we can take advantage of these things. And you can read tons of books on this. I didn't make this up. So as you're working through this process, yes, if the government shutdown happens, it's not going to be good for a period of time. And then there's going to be opportunities that come from that. I promise you, they will. That's what happened every single time. So stay up. Stay in the batter's box. Make sure you're working on what you can control. Today, what you can control is, hey, if you bid on something and you say, hey, there's some shenanigans going on and you want to protest, you have to do that within a very specific time frame. And you have multiple options that are available to you. So let me ask you this. Why wouldn't you want to know how that works? Or if you want a contract and somebody protests, how can you support the government in their position? Yes, you can do that too. And we're going to be talking about that with Jason Moy. He's with Cordatus. He is an expert in this field. We'll be talking about that today at 1 p.m. So if you can swing in, great. Go to govbrief.us. You'll find it right there on GovBrief. And we'll be talking about that. That is something that is within your control. Anything that's within your control, that's where we want to focus. Because if we're paying attention to what's happening outside of our control, we let that consume us and block us from our successes, we can't make progress. We can't possibly make progress on these things. So real quick, don't let obstacles you can't control get in the way of your progress that you can define. Do not let obstacles that you can't control get in the way of your progress, certainly towards success that you can control and you can define. That's my message for today. A little bit heavier from yesterday because guess what? Hey, you screw up, you fix it. I'm going to continue to screw up things. I guarantee you that. I'm a human being. But I'm telling you, you do these things and you do them right, you're going to win. I'm not going to let this keep me down. Oh, no, no, no. You got haters. All right. You got haters, that means you must have lovers. My faithful, fanatic federal friends. All right. Dave Lowe signing off from the Federal Playbook. I shall see you tomorrow.